Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha arteshu abhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayah Tejo Varimridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatratra Sargomrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Drava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We now enter the 75th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. We saw in the last chapter the Rajasuya sacrifice completed by Yudhishthira and also the liberation of Shishupala, and the chapter ended with a small note that Duryodhana was burning with envy because of all the opulence that Yudhishthira was gaining with this sacrifice. So now we continue. Parikshit asks a question, O holy sage. You told me that everyone was rejoicing at the grand success of the Rajasuya sacrifice, but the only exception was Duryodhana. Tell me more about it. So Shuka Brahmam continues. He says, your grandfather Yudhishthira was a great soul. So as we can recall, Parikshit's father is Abhimanyu and his father is Arjuna. So Arjuna is his direct grandfather. But because Yudhishthira is the brother of Arjuna, he is also like his grandfather. All the 5 Pandavas are like grandfather to Parikshit. So he says your grandfather Yudhishthira was a great soul, and because of the affection that everybody had for him, everybody was serving there in some form or the other. So during the sacrifice, when it was happening, even before Shishupala was delivered, the entire sacrifice, which was such an opulent event, it is said that everybody took various services. So Bhima was in charge of the kitchen. Bhima is known for having a voracious appetite, and he is also very good at cooking, so he took care of cooking in the kitchen. Duryodhana was actually given the responsibility of treasury, which probably increased his envy because of the opulence of the treasury. Sahadeva was honoring the guests, and Nakula was procuring supplies. Meanwhile, Arjuna was glorifying and serving all the elders and gurus, while Krishna very beautifully was washing the feet of the guests. So we can see how of all the people, Krishna takes the most lowest service out of his infinite compassion. It says Guru Shushushane Jishnuhu Krishnaha Padavane Jane. So Jishnu is Arjuna. He is doing Guru Seva. But Krishna Padavane Jane means he is serving or he is washing the feet of the guests with water and cleaning them. So that's how beautifully Krishna sets the example of how to serve everyone, guests and all. And Karna was giving gifts away because he's known for being magnanimous. And Draupadi was the one who was serving food. The food that Bhima was making, Draupadi was serving. Many others were there like Vidura, Satyaki. They were all entrusted with one duty or the other. Everybody was performing all their duties with great enthusiasm. So this is the true mark of work, when there is no forcing, there is no artificial constraint of any kind, but there is a natural outpouring of serving attitude. So everyone, it is said, was serving with great enthusiasm in the palace of Yudhishthira. Then, after all the priests and the supervisors of the sacrifice and the men of learning, friends, they were all duly honored with sweet words and rich presents. So everybody was given beautiful presents, feasts, as well as greeted with sweet words as the sacrifice was winding down. And Shishupala had also already merged with Krishna, as we already saw. After all this happened, Yudhishthira went to the river nearby to perform the concluding ablution. So the river is actually Yamuna, because Indraprastha is the present day Delhi, which is on the banks of Yamuna. So Indraprastha was a beautiful city, newly established at the time, surrounded by woods and forests, and Yamuna was pristine and clear. Not so now, after thousands of years, but at that time, the city as well as the river were so beautiful. So everybody went to the river to perform ablutions. And every river is called Ganga, by the way. It's a tradition to call every river as Ganga, the sacred river. So even though we say Ganga, it refers to the river of the local region. Here it's Yamuna. So the ceremony was performed, the ablution ceremony, and everybody was playing musical instruments like mridanga, conch drum, trumpets, and so on, All the beautiful girls danced, and the singers sang. People who were playing the veena, that is the lute, the flute, the cymbals, and all the rest. So there was great kirtan, great music, great dance, great celebration on the banks of Yamuna. You can imagine the scene where everybody has finished all the rituals. They've all come out of the palace. They are all marching towards Yamuna, and there are beautiful open grounds there on the banks of Yamuna. And there is a huge congregation, and everybody is singing, dancing, playing musical instruments. And all the armies to the Yadavas, the Kurus, the Koshalas, all of them, they're all going following Yudhishthira, and the whole earth is shaking because of the armies that are going towards the river. And all the supervisors of the sacrifice, the priests, the brahmanas, they're all chanting Vedic hymns with loud intonations. Everybody is chanting so clearly that pleases the heavens. And the men and women of the city are all beautifully dressed on the way. They're all dressed with beautiful clothes, ornaments, scents, garlands, and they are sprinkling one another with liquids of various kinds. It is said that the men and women were in fact playing very joyfully, putting oil on each other, milk on each other, and so on. So this is the origin of the holy festival that's being celebrated now. We see all of this happening beautifully there. It is said that all the queens also came, Draupadi, and all the queens came in palanquins and got down. And Krishna himself inaugurated the celebration by sprinkling water with various colors on the faces of the queens, starting with Draupadi, and they all smiled bashfully. So this is the tradition of Holi, where everybody throws color water and there is generally revelry. If it's done correctly, it is a great way to become one as community and celebrate the communal feeling. So in this way, it is said that everybody was sprinkling water, and even the ladies took up syringes filled with water. So this is done even today. There are syringes that are filled with water, and they throw jets of water on everyone. So that's what the ladies did, and the men did too. So they all played with each other in great revelry on the banks of Yamuna. Then after that, as Yudhishthira was looking glorious, surrounded by everyone, all the horses, wearing all the gold necklaces with his queen Draupadi and all the consorts nearby, the final ritual was conducted in terms of concluding ablutions as said, and also sipping water called achamana. So he sips water from the river, and then, guided by the priests, Draupadi and Yudhishthira took another dip in the river. And at that time, the drums of celestials were all sounded. Everybody was celebrating. The ablutions were completed. And then, after that, everybody else did their ablutions. The other princes, the other kings, and then all the other various assembled guests. Everyone took their dip in the river. Then Yudhishthira put on a beautiful new silk cloth. And then he adorned himself with beautiful ornaments. And then he honored the priests and the supervisors again with gifts of cloth and ornaments. Being a very sincere devotee, it is said that Yudhishthira only saw Bhagavan in everyone. It says, Pujayamasa Narayana Paro Nripaha. The king, he was only seeing Narayana in everyone, and therefore he was honoring everyone like Narayana. And in this way, everybody was decked up beautifully as well, with jeweled earrings, garlands, turbans, and all the rest for the men, and with beautiful earrings and overhanging locks and golden ornaments for the women, and so on. Then after that, all of them slowly started leaving. The priests, the supervisors, the various princes, everyone started leaving the capital of Indraprastha, though they didn't want to leave because it was so beautiful to be there. Nobody was satisfied. But anyway, any good thing has to come to an end. So they had to leave reluctantly. But Yudhishthira, of course, was not ready to yet depart with Krishna. So he requested Krishna to stay for some time more. So because of that, Krishna sent away his son Samba and some other sons and princesses and so on. And then he stayed with a few wives of his in Hastinapura or in Indraprastha for some time. And in this way, Yudhishthira was so happy because he had completed the Rajasuya sacrifice. That was his utmost desire to serve Krishna. So the way Rajasuya sacrifice is done, it was done with Krishna as the first man of honor, and therefore the whole sacrifice was done not to glorify himself but to glorify Krishna. Yudhishthira said repeatedly that I want to do the sacrifice to let the world know how great it is to be your friend and how wonderful it is to be in your refuge. So his whole performance of the sacrifice was not for himself but for serving Krishna, and therefore his service was done beautifully and he was very happy. Meanwhile, Duryodhana, he was very troubled as we already saw, and he was getting more and more angry seeing the splendor and the greatness and all the people glorifying Yudhishthira and so on. It says, Ekada antapure tasya vikshya Duryodhana shriyam atapyad rajasuyasya mahitvam cha achyutatmanah. So achyutatma atmana means the one who has Achyuta or Krishna in his heart, Yudhishthira. The way he is done the Rajasuya sacrifice, that made him literally burn with jealousy, with envy, Duryodhana. And the palace contained all the wealth, all the splendors, and also it was put together by the demon Maya. It was already mentioned that this demon Maya was saved by Arjuna when a forest was burned down. So because of that, to reciprocate the favor, Maya, even though he is a demon, he built this most exquisite palace for the Pandavas. And it had all kinds of wonderful features, such as there will be floor that looks like floor but it's actually water, and there is places that look like water but it's really floor. So he has done all kinds of such great mystical architectural wonders in the palace. And so Draupadi was there serving everyone and everybody was happy, but Duryodhana was filled with envy. And not only that, he always had an eye for Draupadi because he wanted to marry her, he couldn't. And so he was also having this attachment for Draupadi's beauty and his jealousy for the opulence of Pandavas. So in this way, when all this is going on, one day it is said that Yudhishthira was sitting on a throne of gold surrounded by his brothers, and Krishna was sitting next to him, and Yudhishthira looked like Indra with Krishna next to him. And Duryodhana entered the palace with a sword in hand. He had a crown and necklace and all, and he, as is his wont, he angrily scolded the guards at the gate for no reason. And then he walked with anger, and because he walked with anger, he was deluded by the superb skill of Maya in the way he built the hall. So when he saw a certain part of the floor, he took it as a sheet of water. So he drew up his skirts, and then he realized that it's actually just floor. Then he went further and saw just floor. He thought it's just floor, and he just fell into water. So when he fell into water, everybody laughed except Yudhishthira. It is said that Bhima, Draupadi, all the royal ladies laughed, which is of course not appropriate. So Yudhishthira alone said, don't do that. But Krishna had made a gesture which encouraged them, because this is all mystical. This exact pastime is what Mahabharat war is based on. Because of this alone, Duryodhana will go back, scheme with his uncle, and thereby take away the kingdom of Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, send them to forest, and then they'll come back. And then when they ask for the rightful share after they are back, he will deny that. And then there will be the big Mahabharat war where everybody is killed except the Pandavas. So this is how it unfolds through this one small incident. So this is why Krishna made it happen, because Krishna's purpose, as already mentioned many times, is to relieve the burden on earth of all the evil kings. So he first of all deluded Duryodhana into confusion so that he would fall into the water, and he made everyone laugh with his own Yogamaya, which made Duryodhana extremely angry, burning with rage, and he, with anger, left the hall and departed for Hastinapura. Yudhishthira was, of course, very perturbed, very sad, but Krishna knows exactly what's happening. Of course, this will put the Pandavas through immense misery, but that's all part of the divine plan by which the Pandavas will be reinstated as the sovereign kings, and all the evil kings of Duryodhana and his entire army will be killed. So for that to happen, this pastime had to happen. So Krishna makes this happen, and thereby Duryodhana now goes with anger and with the seed for Mahabharat war in him now. With this chapter ends. Shuka Brahma Rishi says, this is the way Duryodhana developed ill will against Pandavas, which caused the Mahabharat war. With this, This chapter ends again. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.